to New Orleans to pastor my current church, I was chaplain of a boys' detention facility in New York. Once a week, I went to disciple teen boys in this facility through the wisdom of Proverbs. When I began, I only had 3 or 4 boys showing up each week, but before I moved down south, I had a room that was packed full of teen boys who were looking to get principles of wisdom from God's Word. The boys in this facility, though, all had one thing in common. None of them, not a single one, lived with or had a relationship with his father. The Proverbs on mothers really resonated with the boys. I emphasize those heavily. But those Proverbs that talked about your father, those brought up nothing but coldness and resentment. I knew then without a doubt, based on both this experience and also the wisdom in Proverbs, that if there was one thing that New York City boys needed, whose lives were filled with gang violence, the one thing they needed above anything else was a father in the home. Based on all the statistics that we have, the greatest need for teen boys, whether they are black or white, Asian or Hispanic, is their dad to be at home and involved in their lives. And I loudly proclaimed this truth for years. And then 2020 hit. And suddenly, I felt ashamed in the middle of that year to teach the basic biblical lesson that the father is the greatest advantage to any teen boy to help them grow into a godly man. Why? Why was this message suddenly shamed and mocked and contradicted by other Christians that I knew? It's because of social justice. Critical race theory, and other forms of Marxism that have taken hold and begun to grow throughout America today. The influence of critical theory has been growing at a disturbing rate over the last several years. And for those like me who began to question our long-held biblical views, and at times even, am I sane in this world? For those of us who've been struggling with our biblical view, thankfully, God has provided us with a new resource to bring sanity and truth to face the growing insanity and falsehood in America. Voddie Baucham's Fault Lines come to encourage those who speak for biblical truth to continue to proclaim God's righteousness, and also to warn of a coming divide in churches in this world that is going to separate those who define justice based upon God's word against those who define justice based upon a Marxist worldview of conflict theory or the oppressor versus the oppressed power struggle. From the beginning of this book with Voddie's own personal story, a story that is essential for this time and for this battleground. Initially, when I was reading this book, I was a little frustrated actually getting Voddie's story, even though it is so compelling, because I'm like, man, this background information about your life should not be required reading to understand if your teaching is in line with the scripture. Just give me the biblical truth. But I told this view to one of my friends, and he was like, well, if Voddie didn't need to share his testimony, he probably wouldn't need to write this book at all. I was like, I think you're right. And so it is compelling to start this book with Voddie's own personal story. And you can see that he is a man who has clearly been moved into place by God. He is someone who can speak with more authority on this issue based on both his own personal story and his commitment to the Word of God. And from Voddie's personal story at the beginning of the book to his call for forgiveness at the end of the book, Fault Lines is the book we need for this time. This is a book that will strengthen and provide sanity for those who feel like the world has just passed them by in its clamor for social justice and you do not understand what is going on right now. And it is also a call for those who have been swept up into this godless movement to leave it and come back to the biblical truth. Voddie does a great job at both defining the terms and the movements that we are dealing with. He is explicit using the definitions built and crafted by those in the social justice movement in order to clearly portray their goals and their aims and their foundations with their own word. One thing that I love about this book is that Voddie is not attacking straw men that he is creating in order to easily tear down. He is going after Black Lives Matter, critical theory, and the proponents of social justice on their own terms with their own statements. I also love how thoroughly documented this book is. I can't imagine how much time it took to track down all these quotations and statements and statistics and blogs that are referenced throughout the entire book. And this is really a book written for today with all that is referenced, because he confronts college textbooks, online blogs, YouTube videos, website statements of belief in order to expose every avenue the social justice movement is now using to proclaim their false gospel. His focus also on how this is a battlefield between worldviews. This is very important ground to cover because there are so many Christians who want to walk on both sides of the fault line. We're not dealing here with tools for confronting racism in America or helpful advice and wisdom on how to uplift those who are minorities in our country, but we are dealing with a worldview that is completely and thoroughly opposed to God, His Son, His gospel, and His word. So those like Matt Chandler, Tim Keller, David Platt, Eric Mason, J.D. Greer, and we could go on and on and on. Those who want to try to stand for biblical justice on the one side and then stand with social justice on the other side, they're going to end up being like someone who is standing directly on the fault line when the earthquake appears. They will be swallowed whole in the destruction that comes from this. Voddie's critique of Black Lives Matter was also a breath of fresh air. We need more Christians who will stand up and say, I love Black men, I love Black women, but I will not stand for any part of Black Lives Matter. In fact, because I love minorities, I'm not going to support any of their goals to both tear down the church and tear down the family. And finally, there is his emphasis on forgiveness. Forgiveness is the only thing that will heal the wounds in America or any society. His call to forgiveness was so moving that I don't know how you could read it and not be brought near tears as I was. So if you desire to be able to confront social justice based on their terms and their definition, to be able to speak soundly and biblically and logically about this issue, you need to read Fault Lines. If you desire to be encouraged to continue to stand for God's word and to stand for God's truth, read this book. If you desire to help minority communities and minority individuals in America, read this book and put Voddie's wisdom and instruction into practice. I completely agree with Voddie Baucham. There is a great divide that is coming in the American church. I believe this is going to end up dividing every church denomination, from Anglicans to Baptists to Methodists to Presbyterians. All of our denominations are going to be split in half between those who hold a biblical worldview and see justice and redemption based upon God's principles, and on the other side will be those who see justice based upon the godless and unrighteous principles of Karl Marx. And Fault Line helps us to know where to build the foundation of our houses, where to set up our lives so we can survive the coming storms, the coming earthquakes. And may we build our lives, may we build our families, may we build our churches, and may we build our communities on the foundation that is the rock of the teaching of Jesus Christ in all of his word. Fault Lines is a must-read for 2021. I pray it will open the eyes of many in America, and through this book, may we have a revival for justice in this country. So I just want to say thank you, Lord, for giving us Voddie Baucham to speak on this issue in this time with this amount of clarity and wisdom. If you found this review to be helpful, I'd encourage you to subscribe to the Rev Reads YouTube channel to stay engaged in the enlightening world of Christian literature.